Top of the morning, good afternoon, hello, and welcome to the SuperCoach Podcast, the business of coaching made easy. My name is Dermot, at least that's what they told me at birth, and I'm really glad you're here. Like a cup of tea, I'm glad you're here. Welcome, everyone, welcome. Now, did you bring a hot cup of something nice to drink during the show? Now, I have a kind of a funny story here. Hang on, let me take a little sipper. I have a funny story. I was, my wife and I were heading out to go hiking the other day. And I said, oh, do you want to listen to the show? And she said, oh, yeah, let's have a listen to it. I was fishing for compliments. And right at the start where I say, welcome to the show and grab a cup of tea and let's jump in and talk about confidence. She said, Dermot, you're telling people to grab a cup of tea, but what about the people who are listening to the show walking or jogging or hiking? And I thought about it and I said, don't spill the tea for starters, because in Ireland that's tea abuse. But then I thought about it, and for all of you who are hiking or biking or walking or snowshoeing or bungee jumping, to-go cup, grab a to-go cup. All right. But grab a cup of something nice. I always encourage the coaches, if you can. I mean, it's a busy world. And as a coach used to say to me, Dermot, life is, it's a full contact sport. You're going to get your knocks. But if you can, grab a hot cup of something nice, put the feet up and listen to the show. We're going to talk today we're going to continue the conversation on confidence. Confidence comes before clients, comes before strategies, comes before business plans, and so on. Now, last week, I talked about why confidence matters. And I talked about, what is confidence and how does it show up in a session? And today I want to share a little story, a wee story from all the way from Ireland. Being an Irishman, it's, I have to share the stories. There's no way I can't share the stories. Drum roll on that one. Actually, let's do that drum roll again. All right, there we go. A little bit better. But I want to share a story because sometimes confidence, it's interesting. The idea of confidence, it doesn't shift through me telling you information and giving you information or sharing an idea, but it really shifts from experience. And the best way to share experience is through stories. So if you are a coach and you're out there and you're teaching or training or coaching, great way to pop an idea or a suggestion or some valuable information is through stories. Very, very important. So welcome to the show. Grab a cup of hot something nice and let's jump in. Now let's set the scene here a little bit. I want to take you into a coaching moment that has stayed with me for a long, long time. I wish I could say the same for my hair, but this particular experience has stayed with me for quite a while. I was coaching someone, so hang on a second. We gotta get the harps going here. I was coaching someone. Let's jump in. All right. That didn't come across as how I wanted it, but the harps were nice. The whole voice thing was a little bit weird. I was coaching someone who was a very thoughtful coach. Well-trained coach, been in coaching for many years, deeply committed to clients and getting results. For me, the kind of coach that is willing to do the work, invest in themselves, and, just genuinely cares about serving people and moves away from the selling, which is something that I've taught for many, many years. Serve, don't sell. And yet, anyway, partway through the session, she paused, and she said something to me like this: Dermot, I feel like I'm constantly checking myself, wondering if I'm doing this coaching thing right in the middle of a session. And I said, now, are you telling the client this, or is this all going on, in the confines of your mind? And she said, it's all going in my head. The client knows nothing. But I'm wondering, oh my God, am I doing this right? Now, I said to her, look, I'm going to tell you that's very natural. That's very normal. Because I could feel how familiar that experience was to me, not just for this coach, but for lots of coaches, and for myself included. It's very normal to be checking yourself and having these conversations in your head while the client is in front of you, or you're in Zoom. Now that quiet monitoring of yourself while you're coaching, trying to stay present while also evaluating your performance, and you're also at the same time trying to look like you know what you're doing. Your hands up, who knows what I'm talking about? Yeah, there's no question about it. Did I miss something? What should I be writing down? I used to write notes and notes and notes and notes, like a telephone directory. You remember those? I'm aging myself. And I would write down, what the client says, their beliefs, their negative beliefs, their positive beliefs, their neighbor's name, the cat and the dog's name. When really in a coaching session, you just need to write down things like the values, things that the client really finds important, value words, value statements. I love this, I appreciate that, I want to do more of this, value statements. But we tend to, in sessions, myself included, go into, am I asking the right question? Should I use the right process? What process should I do? Does this client suspect that I don't actually really know what I'm doing right now? Any coaches feel that way? Yeah. And all of this, of course, is happening while you're trying to look calm and professional and composed. You're like a duck on the water, serene on the top, and then underneath the water, the legs are going 100 miles an hour. Now, most coaches, what I'm sharing today, coaches, is most coaches don't talk about this out loud. They don't, they bring it into sessions when I'm working with coaches in school or whatever. They'll bring it in, but they feel it. They may not share it to you publicly or to the client, but they feel it. It's incredibly common. It's and especially among coaches who, like yourself, they care about coaching. They care about impact. They care about serving another human being. Now, the interesting thing is that this kind of self-checking, it usually doesn't come from a lack of skill. It comes more from wanting to do a good job. Now, just sit with that for a second. It comes from wanting to do a good job. And I can tell you, I remember this feeling very, very well, especially in the early days. Oh my gosh, I wanted to do a good job. I wanted to impress the client. I wanted to perform a little bit. I was Irish, I was an actor. So I thought, I can perform my way through coaching. But you can't. There's only so much performing, I could do before the client, would stop hiring me. And that was often hard for me at the time, All right, my phone is, I'm realizing that I did not turn off the phone. And so I'm going to do that right now in the middle of the show. It's not very professional, but I want to make sure that you guys get my full attention. Okay. Now, turning point. Let's talk about the turning point. What was interesting about that session for me is that nothing changed in this coach. I didn't teach the coach a new technique or a clever question to ask or a Tony Robbins breakthrough strategy in the moment. The shift simply happened when the coach stopped trying to manage the conversation and simply stayed in the conversation. And let me say that again, because that's important. The shift for this coach happened, and for me, by the way, in my own coaching, because this is what made the difference in my own coaching, is that myself and that coach stopped trying to manage the conversation, be on top of the conversation, and just simply stayed in the conversation. Now, when I notice I'm trying to manage the conversation, I feel, I'm like, I could, the overthinking, the overwhelming, the imposter syndrome shows up. And I notice in my head, it's usually just a lot of overthinking. That's all imposter syndrome is. It's just a lot of overthinking. And in that moment, take a breath, which is what I do now. And what I told that client, the coach, to do, just slow down, take a breath. Notice that you're trying to perform. And what I said to that coach was, hey, stop trying to perform and just trust yourself a little more in the conversation. The best way to do that is to stay in the conversation. Now, after I gave that advice, they came back to me about a week later, and this is what they said. Verbatim. Dermot, that felt like the most natural coaching session I've ever had with a client. Which, by the way, is often code for I stopped trying to get it right. Drum roll, please. I stopped trying to get it right. And that's really important. If you can give yourself permission to stop trying to get it right in every session, oh boy, that will change. Now, that moment for me with that coach captured something important. And it's this, that confidence, my dear coaches, it doesn't come from knowing what to say or the perfect tool to use in the perfect moment or being the perfect coach with the perfect questions and answers and listening deeply and profoundly. It just came from simply allowing the conversation to unfold. It came from me staying in the conversation and allowing the conversation to unfold naturally. Now, as coaches, we still provide structure, right? We start the session on time, we end the session on time. We provide structure, Zoom, whatever it might be. We provide process, which is a tool or a process, or questions or listening. And the client provides the content, which is, what do you want to talk about? And by the way, coaches, they're also responsible for the results and the action steps. You're not responsible for that. So within all of that structure, process, and the client providing the content, within all of that, there's a space. And there's a space to allow the conversation and the insights that the client gets to naturally unfold. And that's the beauty of coaching. That really is the beauty of being with another human being. That's the beauty. So we're on the home stretch here, coaches. Stay with me. Make sure your tea is hot. I hope this doesn't come when I'm drinking my tea. I hope you can't hear it in the microphone, but you probably can. Well, I'll try to do it slowly because two things I love to do is teach and drink tea. And my students will tell you that. Like, Dermot drinks a lot of tea. All right, here's what I want you to hear as we start to slowly wrap up. And I want you to sit with this idea a little bit. Just after the show today, sit with this a little bit. Just before you move on. Now, if you're hiking Mount Everest and you're listening to this on the iPod, don't spill the tea. Confidence doesn't arrive when you feel finally ready or you do the right thing. Confidence grows when you allow yourself to stay in the conversation, even when you don't feel certain or confident. See, most coaches think confidence comes before. I got to be confident before the conversation. But in reality, what I've noticed over the years, doing this for many years, is that it grows inside the conversation. When you stop performing and you just start listening, something softens. And that's where confidence shows up. And this whole thing of imposter syndrome that coaches have, that we have, imposter syndrome drives performance, which means that when you got a lot of overthinking, you feel like an imposter, you start performing. I did this for years. But when I stopped performing, confidence naturally shows up. And it did for me. And it will for you, my dear coach. Now, later in this month and into early February, I'm going to be inviting you into a live coaching experience where we can really practice this together. Not perfectly, but just practice it together and have some fun. So I'll tell you about that later. Because look, here's the bottom line. Confidence grows a whole lot faster when you're not doing it alone. As my mother says, you alone can do it, but you can't do it alone. And just to be clear, confidence doesn't require you to suddenly become a better version of yourself. You know, especially the kind that thinks that, I should know exactly what to do. Confidence simply asks you to stay 5% more present in the conversation, and to notice that when you're in your head, overthinking, imposter syndrome, to just notice that and come back to listening in the conversation. So for now, just let this idea settle. Confidence doesn't come from having it all figured out. It simply grows and shows up when you allow yourself to be a little more present in the conversation. That's the key thing. That's the key thing. Give yourself lots of permission to get this wrong, to not get it right. And until the next time, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you and all the work that you coaches do out there. It's a wonderful profession. We're helping a lot of people have better lives. And what could be a better profession than that? Keep showing up. Don't forget about doing this thing perfectly. Keep coaching. Keep serving. Have fun. And that, my dear coach, is No Blarney. Cheers.